The protocol and people that notes that follow the protocol get rewarded. But I think this is just like a more general version of that, right? And so some of the things they don't think about is like what people think about other people. So personal brand, these are all things that came up from the audience and selling points. But yeah, anyone have any other ideas of like how you would define reputation, what it is?
The connections.
Connections?
Yeah.
Yeah, like a web of trust.
Yeah, web of trust, like how connected you are with different networks.
Yeah, I think this is a good point, and it also points to like what you said before of like repeated interactions.
Yeah.
If you do a bunch of like good things in a silo, that might not actually be good reputation. Like, you might actually need to be approved by other people that already have some sort of context. So it's, as you can see, it's not like an easy thing to just like put your finger on. Like, what is reputation? And so it's sort of like still, I think, in this exploratory phase. I like to think of the reputation stack in the Web3 as like at these two layers. So at the bottom we have a data layer. Basically that's the place where we record all these actions, like all the things that take place, whether it's actually data, whether it's swap you make, or whatever, all kinds of like interactions we do online. On top of that we have some sort of aggregation layer. It's essentially some algorithm that's run on top of this data that determines some kind of reputation in some way. That can be like a score or some kind of check mark or whatever. I think there's like a lot of different like types of algorithms that can be used for reputation in various contexts. So yeah, what can go wrong with this? Well, we sort of have in the Web2 space different ways already to deal with reputation. Basically, like also like how things get surfaced in social networks, and we see a lot of this like leading to polarization and so on. And we also see that it's we're very limited in terms of like who gets access to control these systems. It's not like a democratic process that decides how things rise to the top of Twitter, for example, even though like the algorithm now allegedly is open source. But similar things in Facebook and so on. So ideally we can build these like reputation systems in Web3 and avoid the kind of dystopias we've seen already and potentially even worse. So this is sort of ideas of dystopias. Anyone have any like ideas like what could be dystopias that can come out of like Web3 reputation?
Like social credits.
Okay, how does that look like?
So you hit your quota for meat purchases for this month, right? So in order to kind of like dissuade people from adding to, let's say, climate change, right, with carbon emissions. So you could say, hey, I'm going to limit, 8 ounces of red meat per human per person. If someone goes beyond that, then you could, potentially some centralized body could use this reputation system to track people and determine, their quota has been met.
So using like a reputation system for kind of instantiating central planning.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Or you can't, if you have done something malicious, like in terms of like activity, you could say, hey, you're dissuaded from purchasing, interstate travel. Like, that's probably another thing that's dystopia.
Do you think there's like some versions of reputation that could be used to like gate and limit access to certain things?
Gain or limit.
So your last example was basically like
we already have something like that with chain analysis, right? So chain analysis, like actually, looks at OFAC sanctioned wallets, and then it's up to Web3 applications to integrate with that to determine whether those applications are compliant or not. They also monitor transactions as well. I was talking with one of the infra builders saying, why don't you just integrate that with RPC calls, right? Like, why the hell do I have to pay for another service? But that's besides the point. That's one example of a reputation system. right? Some social body or norm consider these wallets to be sanctioned. Whether you agree with that or not, that's just based on some social construct that we determine.
Great, yeah. And one particular dystopia I'd like to highlight is that it turns out that we emerged out of this like design space with one global reputation system that everyone is kind of subject to. That would be a really bad outcome because then like inevitably this like one controlling system is gonna have some positive aspects and also like a lot of negative aspects. So ideally our reputation systems should be a lot different ones for different contexts and be more sort of
Wouldn't you consider like Swift transactions and the US dollar to be a global reputation system?
yeah, I guess you could do that.
Yeah. You can sanction a country from making purchases, and it impacts the lives of billions of people.
Yeah. Anyone else have any thoughts on like dystopias?
The US Grid Explorer.
Okay, I don't know about it.
I don't know about it either. It sounds like dystopian or something like that.
Okay. Anyone have any like potential dystopias of like us building reputation systems and like the like what could go?
We have like the painting of token, which is similar to the assumption wallet you were talking about. Like if somehow like you just wanted to get paid in crypto, you got crypto, and it turned out 10 people ago the crypto was used in a hack. Later, you can have someone that says, "No, I don't like that crypto. That crypto you must not use it. If you use it, I'm going to throw you in jail." And then against we have a different like the story of where your tokens come from. Change that idea.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I think one that is very relatable is many people come out of high school feeling embarrassed about at least something. And if that reputation stays on chain and follows you to college and then to work, that might not be the best future. So we change communities over our lives and end up rebuilding reputation rather than having the embarrassing breakup in high school
Yeah, that's
and
interesting.
the subsequent reputation fallout following us for the rest of our lives.
Maybe in the future we're like forced to change identities all the time. All right. So what could be some like protopias? Protopias here meaning like utopias are generally like conceived as not something we can reach, but a protopia is we try to get better and better societies. And so what are some of the things we could potentially have? What are the really good aspects that could come out of Web3 reputation?
Like we could hold acting civil people for like say online services. So if I need like to store supplies somewhere, it would be nice if I could have a reputation on chain that tells me, oh, that person gave them money and they actually have the file, and that one they try to keep it, but like the reliability is poor and the data transfer is awful, something like that.
Okay, so you're essentially saying you can have cheaper file storage because you can know who
Yeah.
to trust.
Exactly. And so because you have like, because the current landscape is mainly like, either you pay a lot to like the big, huge cloud providers, and you're probably gonna have a good time. If you want something cheaper, then it's not. It's more random. You don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah. Any other ideas?
For example, like people have like an online identity and they sign a Luma is that they're going to this event and then if they don't show up, that's bad reputation for them. People who have good
Good one.
reputation.
I don't like that. I sign up for it.
Okay.
So important to opt out. I mean,
Yeah. Any other ideas? Like, what would be a good outcome to for a reputation?
Proof of merit, right? Like whenever I hire an independent contractor to do some work for me, that's somewhere in the world. I don't have any idea of like their reputation. It's just a lot through referral. So it would be nice if I was able to determine, like, you know, whether that person is able to complete the tasks from previous work, and if I can see that on chain, that'll be great. And then also from a potential contractor of a potential person who's hiring for work, they could see, does this person actually pay out in an agreeable manner. And you could even take this further to product reviews, right? A lot of Amazon products are spam botted with like fake comments, right? So if you could actually have a single account with a single like personhood without KYC, that would be absolutely amazing, right? So then there's like some merit to product reviews, some merit to employment reviews, etc.
Yeah. I wonder also if like really good reputation systems could move us away from like having, like this current mode of operation, which is like we've built companies to build things and actually have more real DAOs. We set a goal as, like a group of people, a society, like we should achieve that and just like have a lot of people collaborate towards that without the ability for anyone to sort of game the system and extract resources from this like large global, or like it doesn't need to be global, but like large effort that's happening from being coordinated over the internet. Okay, so let's see what other people suggested. Yeah, so equitable access to resources globally. Maybe something's possible. Education. We already talked to you, was what you just mentioned. And another thing's like, it would be nice if this system was pseudonymous, right? So we don't have to reveal our real identity. I think there are many different types of these types of algorithm. Some you probably want a global view of like participants across the planet. Some you probably want very local to be like in your local community. And ideally, these reputation systems are composable. So you could potentially have a bunch of local reputation systems that maybe compose up to like a nationwide reputation system. But I think there's like a really big design space. So here are some ideas of like different types of aggregations. I don't know if anyone else have any ideas of like how would you actually look at data and compute different types of scores.
You have a Gitling score for open source software. So you then the more lines of code that was left, then you can in some set of paper.
Sounds like it could be contentious.
Yeah. And some yeah, okay.
Removing spaces.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of so we have like regional PGF and stuff where and usually what I've seen happening is we look at numbers of commits and they flatline it to some rate. And I think like number of lines of code might be slightly can you remove white space or remove comments or like maybe lines of code that do something could be better than number of commits. Because I mean like you wrote code that stayed, which doesn't always get better.
Ideally you wanna like measure the amount of thinking and logic that came into it, right? Because like you can generate a shit ton of code with Copilot.
Yeah.
And just the volume of code doesn't really equate to like the amount of effort you put into something.
Right now, what I've seen used is the number of commits, which I think is even less, and depends a lot on people. Like, so
yeah, I have a script that just auto commits every character I have to use. Not really.
yeah, okay, splash everything.
And then there's some projects here exploring this in the Web3 space, like Caramel Labs, for example, is building something called Eigentrust, which is essentially like the Google, well, maybe this is separate. So, but essentially like a graph algorithm that they run of data to compute scores for different sorts of reputation. It's also, I think the project isn't around anymore, but SourceGrid was a project that basically used Google PageRank, but applied it to social graphs. And they imported like GitHub and discourse forums and etc. And it's like try to make some system of reward based on that. I think there have been a bunch of experiments and needs to be a lot more experiments. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the data layer and specifically kind of what we built in Ceramic to enable some of this. So if you think about what the data layer is, it's basically data that's authored by an individual like yourself, about someone else, and about things. So in that, you kind of have all the types of claims you can make, essentially. I think also this includes things like transactions you make and like interactions that have happened, which is essentially just like more complex versions of claims about yourself, someone else, and stuff. But it could also be data that's generated by an algorithm, and an algorithm can generate data about someone, or it can generate data about things. Another thing we need to think about in these sort of systems is, of course, like who can read this data. Because in some cases, you might want to have this sort of data living more privately and have some sort of community private reputation that's not exposed to the rest of the people. So here are some ideas of like what types of actions could be relevant in on the data layer. Anyone have any other ideas here? This like endorsements, contributions. We already talked about some of these, but anyone have any other ideas of like what would be like good signal things to record in some sort of data system to build these aggregation layers later on? And in sort of the DSOC world of like subset of Web3, people talk about social distance, which is basically a way to measure like the distance between two individuals in like social
map.
yeah, something like that. And I think beyond just like on-chain DeFi sort of things, we can record a lot of this data as basically signed claims and attestations. And this could be in various different formats, like verified credentials. So there's one standard by WC, there's another standard by TF. Ethereum attestation service essentially is like using Ethereum Improvement Proposal 7.12, which is something called signed type data. But really, like any signed data can be used as like input to these sort of reputation mechanisms. And ideally, we also want this data to like, if we just think about it for a little bit, there's going to be a lot of data. We're going to be able to record a lot of this like reputational context. We're not going to be able to stick all of that on chain. So we need some way to store the data on chain, but still be able to synchronize it in a peer-to-peer fashion. And ideally, we also want to know like when things happen. So we want to be able to timestamp things and have the ability to see that like this data hasn't been captured. And so this is kind of part of the reason why we built Ceramic, which we think of as a decentralized data lake. In Ceramic, all data it's added is timestamped on Ethereum. So we use Ethereum's kind of blockchain as the source of truth of time in the system. And all the data is written into hash-linked event blocks that are compatible with IPFS, IPFS specifically. And these are signed by keys that are controlled by the user. All the data is replicated using a new LPP subprotocol called Recon, which essentially allows you to keep in sync growing, expanding data sets. And they're attributable to users' wallets using the IPs. In order to make this like usable for people to actually build real applications that write this type of data, we've created a database in top of Ceramic called CompostDB. It exposes a GraphQL API and allows you to define schemas with that. You can create sort of relational graphs of data. And all these models or schemas of data is discoverable and composable. So you can go to explorers and find these data models, look at the data inside, and pull those into your application. For Ceramic, we actually recently started a Rust implementation of the protocol. And as I mentioned, Recon is this like new peer-to-peer replication system. And we're working on a new event streaming API that allows you to get low-level access to the event streams. So you can build your own databases as alternatives to CompostDB or as components. And there's a growing ecosystem of data models on Ceramic. There are two main data explorers, one called Searchscan, one called S3, and there you can go and like look at the data that already exists there. If you're building like a reputation type application, you can go there, look at the data model, deem relevant, pull those into your reputation algorithm, and just like start to use these types of data. Right, that's it. Thank you.